The rain stung my face like 1,000 tiny accusations, each drop reminding me I was standing outside his apartment again, like some lovesick fool who hadn't learned his lesson. My therapist's voice echoed in my head. Elliot, you need someone who's emotionally available, someone who can meet you halfway. But halfway wasn't a place my heart knew how to find, not when it came to Noah. I was 25, a graphic designer scraping by in a small Ohio town. And Noah was the storm that had upended my life 2 years ago. He was 26 now, a mechanic with hands that could fix anything except the mess he'd left in my chest. We'd met at a dive bar, his crooked smile cutting through the haze of cheap beer and bad decisions. And I'd been hooked ever since, hooked on his laugh, his reckless charm, the way he'd kiss me like the world was ending. But Noah was a wildfire, beautiful, untamed, and impossible to hold. He'd walk out of my life as easily as he'd walked in, leaving me to pick up the pieces. Tonight, I stood under the flickering street lamp outside his place, my sneakers soaked, my heart pounding. I wasn't supposed to be here. I'd promised Dr. Larson I'd move on. Promised myself I'd stop chasing a man who couldn't stay. But then I'd seen him at the gas station yesterday, his blue eyes locking onto mine for a split second before he turned away. And that one look had unraveled every ounce of progress I'd made. I needed to see him. I needed to know if he still felt it too. The door to his apartment building creaked open, and there he was, leaning against the frame, his flannel shirt unbuttoned just enough to show the edge of the tattoo I'd once traced with my fingers. Elliot, he said, his voice low, like he was testing the weight of my name. What are you doing here? I don't know. I lied, my breath catching. I needed to see you. He sighed, running a hand through his damp blonde hair. And for a moment, I thought he'd invite me in. But his eyes were guarded, like a wall had gone up since the last time we'd spoken. You shouldn't be here, he said. But he didn't move, didn't close the door. The rain kept falling, blurring the space between us, and I took a step closer. Noah, I can't keep pretending I'm over you. I've tried. God, I've tried. But it's you. It's always been you. His jaw tightened, and for a second, I saw a flicker of something raw, something that mirrored the ache in my chest. But then he shook his head. Elliot, I'm not good for you. You know that. I wanted to scream that I didn't care, that I'd take the pain over the emptiness of moving on. But before I could, a car pulled up, its headlights cutting through the rain. A guy stepped out tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that didn't belong in this moment. Noah, you ready? He called, his voice casual, like he hadn't just interrupted the most important conversation of my life. Noah glanced at him, then back at me, and the weight of that look crushed me. Go home, Elliot, he said softly, and then he was gone, walking toward the car, toward a life that didn't include me. I stood there, rain soaking through my jacket, my heart screaming at me to chase after him. But my feet stayed rooted, paralyzed by the truth I didn't want to face. Noah might never be mine again. The next morning, I sat in Dr. Larson's office, staring at the fern in the corner like it held the answers to my problems. You want to see him? She said. Not a question, her glasses perched on the edge of her nose. And her calm, knowing tone made me feel like a kid caught sneaking cookies. I couldn't help it, I admitted, my voice hoarse. I saw him, and it was like nothing had changed. But everything's changed. She leaned forward, her pen tapping against her notepad. Elliot, you're holding on to a version of Noah that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe he never did. You deserve someone who chooses you, not someone you have to chase. Her words stung because they were true, but they didn't stop the ache. I'd spent 2 years loving Noah. Through his late-night disappearances, his vague promises, his inability to say what he really felt. And yet, every time I tried to let go, I'd find myself back at square one, longing for the man who'd made me feel alive in a way no one else ever had. That afternoon, I wandered into a coffee shop to escape the cold, my sketchbook tucked under my arm. I was doodling absent-mindedly a rough sketch of Noah's face, his eyes half hidden under that messy hair when someone slid into the booth across from me. Hey, you're Elliot, right? The guy was maybe 28, with warm brown eyes and a smile that felt like sunlight after a storm. I'm Jamie. I've seen you around. I blinked, caught off guard. Jamie was a barista here, I realized, his apron still tied loosely around his waist. He had a kind face, the kind that made you want to trust him. But I wasn't in the mood for small talk. Yeah, that's me, I said, closing my sketchbook. You're an artist? He asked, nodding at the book. That's cool. I dabble in photography myself. I nodded, not sure where this was going. Jamie leaned forward, his voice gentle. Look, I don't mean to pry, but you seem heavy, like you're carrying something big. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. His kindness disarmed me, and for a moment, I wondered what it would be like to let someone like Jamie in, someone who didn't make my heart race, but also didn't make it break. But then my phone buzzed, and Noah's name flashed across the screen. A text, short and maddeningly vague. Can we talk? My pulse spiked, and just like that, Jamie's warmth faded into the background. Noah wanted to talk. After months of silence, he was reaching out. I typed a quick reply, my hand shaking, and when I looked up, Jamie was watching me with a knowing look. Someone important? He asked, no judgment in his voice. I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. Yeah. Someone I can't seem to let go of. I met Noah at a park on the edge of town, where the grass was patchy and the swings creaked in the wind. He was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench with his hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. The sight of him slouched, brooding, with that familiar mix of defiance and vulnerability made my chest tighten. You came, he said, standing as I approached. His voice was softer than I expected, almost hesitant. You asked me to, I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. What's this about? Noah. He looked away, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun was sinking, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I saw you last night, he said finally. Outside my place. You looked wrecked. I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you rip someone's heart out and keep walking. His eyes snapped back to mine, and for a moment, I saw the Noah I'd fallen for, the one who felt everything too deeply but never knew how to show it. I didn't mean to hurt you, Elliot, he said. I never wanted that. Then why did you? The words came out sharper than I meant, but I didn't take them back. You left, Noah. You walked away without a word. And now you're acting like I'm the one who's supposed to fix this. He ran a hand over his face, his frustration palpable. It's not that simple. You don't know what it's like for me. My family. This town. Being with you was the only thing that ever felt right. But it scared the hell out of me. I froze, his words hitting me like a punch. Noah had never talked about his family. Not really. I knew his dad was a hard man, a mechanic like him, with expectations Noah could never meet. I knew this town wasn't kind to guys like us. Two men who loved each other in a place where people still whispered behind their hands. But he'd never let me in. Never let me carry that weight with him. Then let me help, I said, stepping closer. You don't have to do this alone. He shook his head, his voice breaking. You don't get it, Elliot. I'm not like you. You're brave. You're out. You're proud. You don't care what anyone thinks. I'm a coward. The admission hung between us, raw and heavy. I wanted to reach for him, to pull him close and tell him he wasn't a coward, that he was enough. But before I could, he turned away, his shoulders hunched. I need time, he said. I'm not saying never, but I need to figure myself out. I stood there, watching him walk away again, his figure blurring as tears stung my eyes. Time. He always needed time, but time was the one thing I couldn't keep giving him. The next few days were a blur. I threw myself into work, designing logos for a local bakery, but my mind kept drifting back to Noah. Jamie started showing up more often. Too not pushy, just there. He'd bring me coffee when I was sketching at the shop, or he'd text me a photo of some random street art he'd found, knowing it'd make me smile. He was steady, kind, the kind of guy Dr. Larson would approve of. But every time I thought about letting him in, Noah's face would flash in my mind, and I'd shut down. One evening, Jamie invited me to an open mic night at the coffee shop. No pressure, he said, his smile easy. Just thought you might like to get out of your head for a bit. I went, mostly because I was tired of my own thoughts. The place was packed, the air thick with the smell of espresso and nervous energy. Jamie was on stage, reading a poem he'd written about capturing moments through a camera lens. His voice was warm, deliberate, and when he looked at me from the stage, I felt a flicker of something new, something that wasn't pain. Afterward, we sat in a corner booth, sharing a plate of fries. You're good at that, I said, nodding toward the stage. The poetry thing. It's real. He shrugged, his cheeks flushing. Thanks. I just try to say what I feel. What about you? You ever share your art? I hesitated, my sketchbook burning a hole in my bag. Not really. It's personal. You know. He nodded, like he understood more than I was saying. Maybe one day you'll show me. No rush. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. Jamie was different, safe. Steady. The opposite of Noah's chaos. But as we talked, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Noah, I miss you. My heart lurched, and I hated myself for it. Jamie noticed the change in my expression and leaned back, his smile fading. It's him, isn't it? He asked quietly. I nodded, unable to lie. I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm a mess. He reached across the table, his hand brushing mine for a moment. You're not a mess, Elliot. You're just figuring it out. I'll be here when you do. The text from Noah haunted me all night. I miss you. 3 words. So simple. Yet they tore through every defense I'd built. I didn't reply, but I wanted to God. I wanted to. Instead, I tossed and turned, replaying every moment we'd shared, the late-night drives. The way he'd hum off-key to old rock songs. The nights we'd spent tangled in each other's arms. Whispering dreams we were too scared to chase. By morning, I was a wreck. My eyes gritty from lack of sleep. Dr. Larson noticed the moment I walked into her office. You look like you're carrying the world, Elliot, she said, her voice gentle but firm. What happened? I told her about Noah's text, about the park, about Jamie. She listened, her pen still, her eyes steady on mine. You're at a crossroads, she said when I finished. You can keep chasing Noah, hoping he'll become the man you need. Or you can choose a life where you're not always waiting. Her words hit hard, but they didn't erase the pull I felt toward Noah. I left her office and headed to the garage where he worked, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and longing. I found him under a car, his hands streaked with grease, his focus intense. Elliot. He slid out, wiping his hands on a rag, his expression a mix of surprise and wariness. What's up? You can't keep doing this, I said, my voice shaking. You can't text me, I miss you, and then act like it doesn't mean anything. What do you want? Noah. He stood, his height making the small garage feel even smaller. I don't know, he admitted, his voice raw. I miss you, but I'm not ready. Not for this. Not for us. Then why say it? I snapped. Why keep pulling me back in? Because I'm selfish, he said, his eyes locking onto mine. Because even though I know I'm bad for you, I can't stop thinking about you. The air between us crackled, and for a moment, I thought he'd kiss me. I wanted him to. But then his boss shouted something from the back, and the moment shattered. Noah stepped back, his walls going up again. I've got to get back to work, he said. I'm sorry, Elliot. I left the garage, my chest tight, my mind spinning. I wanted to hate him, but I couldn't. Instead, I went to the coffee shop, hoping Jamie's steady presence would ground me. He was there, wiping down the counter, and when he saw me, his face lit up. "Rough day?" he asked, sliding a coffee my way. "You could say that," I said, managing a weak smile. "Can we talk?" We sat in the back, the hum of the shop fading into the background. I told him about Noah, about the push and pull, the way I couldn't let go even when it hurt. Jamie listened, his eyes never leaving mine. And when I finished, he leaned forward. "You deserve better than someone who keeps you waiting," he said softly. "But I get it. Love's messy. If you need time, I'm not going anywhere." His words were a lifeline, but they also made me feel guilty. Jamie was everything Noah wasn't. Open, kind, present. But my heart was still tethered to Noah, and I didn't know how to cut the rope. That night, I went to a bar with some friends, hoping to drown my thoughts in music and laughter. But fate had other plans. Noah was there, leaning against the bar, his arm around the same guy from the other night. My stomach dropped, and when our eyes met, he froze, his expression unreadable. I turned to leave, but he caught up to me outside, his hand grabbing my wrist. "Elliot, wait," he said, his voice urgent. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I demanded, pulling my arm free. "Because it looks like you've moved on while I'm still stuck on you." "He's just a friend," Noah said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I'm trying. Okay. I'm trying to figure out who I am without you. And I'm trying to figure out who I am without you breaking my heart every 5 minutes." I shot back. He stepped closer, his breath warm against my cheek. "I don't want to break you, Elliot. I never did." "Then stop," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Stop making me hope." For a moment, we stood there, the world narrowing to just us. Then he leaned in, his lips brushing mine, and every resolve I had crumbled. The kiss was desperate, familiar, and it tore me apart. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. "I'm sorry," he said, and then he was gone again, leaving me in the dark. The kiss lingered like a bruise, tender and impossible to ignore. I didn't sleep that night, my mind replaying the feel of Noah's lips, the way his hands had trembled against my face. By morning, I was a mess, torn between the high of that moment and the crash of knowing it didn't change anything. Dr. Larson was relentless in our next session. "Elliot, you're choosing pain," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. "Noah's giving you just enough to keep you hooked, but not enough to build a life with. Why do you keep going back?" I didn't have an answer, not one that made sense. All I knew was that Noah felt like home, even when he was the one setting it on fire. I tried to focus on work, sketching designs for a local festival, but my heart wasn't in it. Jamie kept texting, small gestures that made me smiley a photo of a sunset, a joke about burnt coffee. He was trying so hard, and I hated myself for not being able to meet him halfway. One afternoon, he invited me to a photography exhibit in a nearby city. "It's just a day trip," he said, his voice light. "No strings. Just art and good company." I said yes, desperate for a distraction. The exhibit was in a sleek gallery, filled with black and white photos that captured raw, human moments: a mother cradling her child, a couple dancing in the rain, a man sitting alone on a park bench. Jamie's eyes lit up as he talked about composition and light, and I found myself relaxing, caught up in his passion. "You see the world differently," I said as we stood in front of a photo of two hands intertwined. "It's like you find beauty in the small things." He smiled, a little shy. "I try to. Life's messy, but there's always something worth capturing." For a moment, I wondered what it would be like to let myself fall for him. He was safe, steady, the kind of person who'd never leave me standing in the rain. But then my phone buzzed, and Noah's name flashed across the screen again. A voicemail this time. I stepped outside to listen, my heart racing. His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. "Elliot, I need to see you. I'm sorry about last night. I'm trying to be better. Please." I stood frozen, the phone pressed to my ear, Jamie's laughter drifting from inside the gallery. Noah was pulling me back again, and I hated how much I wanted to run to him. I went to his apartment that night, my resolve crumbling with every step. He opened the door, his eyes red-rimmed, his hair a mess. "I didn't think you'd come," he said, stepping aside to let me in. The place was a mess: empty beer cans, a half-eaten pizza on the counter, but it was so quintessentially Noah that it hurt. We sat on his couch, the silence heavy between us. "What do you want, Noah?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You," he said, his voice breaking. "I want you, but I'm scared I'll ruin you." I reached for his hand, my fingers brushing against his. "Then don't," I said. "Be with me. Really be with me." He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, and for a moment, I thought he'd say yes. But then he pulled his hand away, his expression closing off. "I can't," he said. "Not yet." I left his apartment, my heart in pieces, and went straight to the coffee shop. Jamie was there, closing up, and when he saw my face, he didn't ask questions. He just pulled me into a hug, his arms steady and warm. "I'm here," he whispered, and for the first time, I let myself lean into him, let myself imagine a life where I wasn't always chasing someone who couldn't stay. But even as I stood there, Noah's voice echoed in my head, pulling me back into the storm. The weeks that followed were a tug-of-war between my head and my heart. Jamie was a constant, his presence like a lighthouse in the fog, steady, guiding, safe. We started spending more time together. Not dating exactly, but something close. He'd show up at my apartment with takeout, or we'd walk through the park, talking about everything and nothing. He made me laugh, made me feel seen in a way Noah never had. But Noah was still there, a shadow I couldn't shake. He'd text every few days, Small messages that kept me tethered to him, thinking of you. Saw something that reminded me of you. Each one was a hook, pulling me back into the chaos of wanting him. One night, Jamie invited me to his place for dinner. His apartment was warm, filled with photos he'd taken, moments of beauty captured in black and white. He cooked pasta, the kitchen smelling of garlic and basil, and we talked over candlelight. The conversation easy. "You're different lately," he said, twirling spaghetti around his fork. "Lighter, maybe." I smiled, but it felt forced. "I'm trying," I said. "You make it easier." He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "I'm glad," he said, his eyes soft. "I like seeing you happy." For a moment, I let myself imagine a future with him, a life of quiet moments, shared laughter, no heartbreak. But then my phone buzzed, and Noah's name lit up the screen. I didn't open it, but Jamie saw the change in my face. "It's him, isn't it?" he asked, his voice gentle but tinged with resignation. I nodded, guilt twisting in my chest. "I'm sorry, Jamie. I don't know how to stop this." He leaned back, his expression unreadable. "You don't have to apologize for feeling what you feel. But Elliot, you can't keep living in two worlds. It's not fair to you, or to him, or to me." His words cut deep, and I knew he was right. I left his apartment that night, promising to figure things out. But the truth was, I didn't know how. The next day, Noah showed up at my door, unannounced, his eyes wild with something I couldn't name. "I'm done running," he said before I could speak. "I'm done pretending I don't love you." My heart stopped, the words I'd waited so long to hear hanging in the air. "Noah, you can't just—" "I know," he interrupted, stepping closer. "I know I've hurt you. I know I don't deserve you. But I'm here, Elliot. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." I wanted to believe him, wanted it so badly it hurt. But I'd heard promises before, and they'd always ended in pain. "Why now?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What's changed?" He took a deep breath, his hands shaking. "I told my dad. About us. About me. He didn't take it well. But I did it. I'm done hiding." The weight of his words hit me like a wave. Noah had always been terrified of his father's judgment, of this town's small-mindedness. For him to come out, to face that fear, was huge. "I love you," he said, his voice breaking. "I've always loved you. I just didn't know how to let myself." I stood there, torn between the man I'd loved for years and the man who'd been there when Noah wasn't. Jamie's face flashed in my mind, his kindness, his patience, the way he'd never asked for more than I could give. "I need time," I said finally, echoing Noah's own words back to him. "I need to figure this out." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "I'll wait," he said, "for as long as it takes." The days that followed were torture. Noah's confession had cracked something open in me, but it also left me more confused than ever. I loved him, I'd always loved him, but love wasn't enough if it meant a lifetime of waiting for him to be ready. And then there was Jamie, who'd never made me wait, who'd never broken my heart. I avoided both of them, burying myself in work, sketching until my hands ached. But the sketches were all of Noah's eyes, his hands, the way he looked when he thought no one was watching. I couldn't escape him, even when I tried. Dr. Larson was my anchor in the storm. "You're not choosing between Noah and Jamie," she said during our next session. "You're choosing between two versions of yourself, one who clings to pain because it's familiar, and one who's brave enough to let go and build something new." Her words stayed with me, but they didn't make the choice any easier. I knew Jamie was the healthier option, the one who'd never leave me standing in the rain. But Noah was the one who'd carved himself into my soul, for better or worse. One evening, I ran into Noah at the grocery store. Of all places, he was in the cereal aisle, holding a box of Lucky Charms, looking so ordinary it almost broke me. "Hey," he said, his voice soft. "You okay?" I nodded, though I wasn't. Just trying to figure things out. He set the box down, stepping closer. I meant what I said. "Elliot, I'm not going anywhere. But I know I've got to earn your trust. I'm trying." I wanted to believe him, but the scars he'd left were still fresh. "I need more than words, Noah," I said. "I need you to show me." He nodded, his eyes steady. "I will. I promise." That night, I met Jamie for coffee, needing to clear the air. We sat outside, the air crisp with the first hints of fall. "I'm a mess," I admitted, staring into my cup. "I don't know what I'm doing, but I know you deserve better than this." Jamie leaned forward, his expression soft. "I'm not asking for perfection, Elliot. I just want a chance. But I can't compete with someone who's already got your heart." His words stung, because they were true. I cared about Jamie, maybe I could even love him one day, but Noah was still there, taking up space I couldn't reclaim. "I need time," I said, hating how familiar the word sounded. "I don't want to hurt you, Jamie." He smiled, sad but understanding. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." The next day, Noah showed up at my apartment with a small, nervous smile and a sketchbook. "I found this," he said, holding it out. "You left it at my place a while back." I took it, my fingers brushing against his, and opened it to find pages filled with my drawings. Together, in moments I'd thought were lost. "I kept it," he said, "because it reminded me of what we had, what we could still have." Tears pricked my eyes, and for the first time, I saw something new in Noah Hope. Not just for us, but for himself. He was trying, really trying, and it made my heart ache in a way I hadn't expected. Noah started showing up in small ways, proving he meant what he said. He'd text me good morning. Not just, "I miss you," but thoughtful messages about my day. He'd leave coffee on my doorstep, knowing I was useless without it. He even came to one of my art shows, standing quietly in the back. His presence a quiet support I hadn't expected. But Jamie was still there, too. And I couldn't ignore the way he made me feel safe, valued, like I didn't have to fight for his affection. We went on a hike one weekend, the trail winding through a forest that smelled of pine and earth. He talked about his dreams, about opening a photography studio, and I found myself opening up about my dreams I'd buried under the weight of loving Noah. "You're good for me," I told him as we sat on a rock, the valley sprawling below us. "I don't know if I'm good for you, though." He laughed, nudging my shoulder. "Let me decide that." "Okay." But the choice was looming, and I couldn't keep stringing them both along. Noah was trying, but he'd hurt me so many times, and I didn't know if I could trust him not to do it again. Jamie was everything I should want, but my heart still sang Noah's name. One night, Noah asked me to meet him at the lake where we'd spent our first summer together. The air was cool, the water reflecting the stars like a mirror. He was waiting by the dock, a blanket spread out, a thermos of hot chocolate between us. "I used to come here when we were apart," he said, his voice low. "I'd sit here and think about you, about all the ways I screwed up. I want to be better, Elliot. For you. For me." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man he was trying to become. Not the Noah who ran, but the Noah who stayed, who fought for us. "I want to believe you," I said, "but I'm scared." He took my hand, his touch warm and steady. "I know. And I'll spend every day proving you don't have to be." We sat there until the stars faded, talking about the past, the future, the things we'd never dared to say. For the first time, I felt like we were building something real, something worth fighting for. But the next day, Jamie called, his voice quiet. "I saw you with him," he said, "at the lake. You looked happy." My stomach twisted. "Jamie, It's okay," he interrupted. "I want you to be happy, Elliot. Even if it's not with me. But I need you to choose. For real this time." I hung up, my heart heavy. Jamie deserved better, and Noah was trying. But I couldn't keep living in this in-between. I had to decide not just for them, but for myself. The decision came down to a single moment, one that crystallized everything I'd been grappling with. It was a Sunday, the air crisp with the promise of fall, and I was sitting in my apartment, staring at the sketchbook Noah had returned. The pages were filled with memories. Laughing, loving, breaking apart. But there was one drawing I'd forgotten, a sketch of Noah and me on the lake dock. Our hands intertwined, our faces lit with hope. I realized then that I'd been holding on to that hope for years, even when it hurt. Noah had broken me, but he was also the one who'd made me feel alive. Jamie was everything I should want, kind, steady, emotionally available, but my heart didn't race for him the way it did for Noah. And maybe that was okay. Maybe love wasn't about choosing the safe option, but about choosing the one who made you want to fight, to grow, to be better. I called Jamie first, because he deserved that much. We met at the coffee shop, the place where he'd first reached out to me. "I'm so sorry," I said, my voice breaking. "You're amazing, Jamie. You're everything anyone could want. But my heart, it's with him." He nodded, his smile sad but kind. "I knew," he said. "I just hoped I was wrong. But I want you to be happy, Elliot. You deserve that." We hugged, and I felt the weight of his kindness, the ache of letting him go. But as I walked away, I felt lighter, like I'd finally made room for the truth. I went to Noah's apartment, my heart pounding. He opened the door, his eyes searching mine, and before he could speak, I kissed him. It was fierce, desperate, a promise and a plea. "I choose you," I said when we pulled apart. "But you have to keep showing up, Noah. No more running." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'm here," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." We spent the night talking, planning, dreaming of a future we'd both been too scared to imagine. Noah told me about his plans to leave the garage, to start his own shop, to live openly as himself. I told him about my art, my fears, the life I wanted us to build. The next morning, we went to the lake again, the place where it all began. We stood on the dock, hand in hand, the water stretching out before us. "I love you," Noah said, his voice steady. "And I'll spend every day proving it." I believed him not because he was perfect, but because he was trying. And maybe that was enough. Dr. Larson smiled when I told her, her eyes warm. "You're choosing yourself, too," she said. "You're choosing a love that pushes you to grow, not one that holds you back." As the weeks turned into months, Noah kept his promise. He showed up, day after day, through the hard moments and the beautiful ones. We faced the town's whispers together, held hands in public, built a life that was messy but ours. And in the quiet moments, when it was just us and the stars, I'd sketch Himi Noah, my wildfire, my home. The therapist had told me to love someone emotionally available, but my heart had chosen him. And for the first time, I knew it was the right choice.